something? Hi, I'm Kate Ferry.
And I'm Jane Lowry.
I'm chairman of Eagle County Republicans.
And I'm the Democrat.
Yeah, we'd like to welcome you tonight, but we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please, and a moment of silence for the victims of 9/11. Gary Burkholder will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll have a moment. Thank you. This is the first of two debates we're holding before the November election. Tonight we're having debates between the Senate 5 candidates and the House District 26 candidates. Next Tuesday we'll have county commissioners, the sheriff, and the coroner races, and followed by remarks for the uncontested races of the treasurer, the county clerk, the assessor, and the surveyor. Tonight we have two moderators, Ron Robbins and Greg Johnson, and from this point on it's their show. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. This is being recorded. It is live, so we will keep things civil tonight, I'm sure. The format of this debate is that each candidate will provide some introductory remarks of a couple minutes. They will then answer 8 questions and then provide a couple more minutes of closing remarks. Those 8 questions we'll share, Ron and I, in terms of asking the candidates, and it will be structured such that the first candidate will have a 2-minute time period to answer, then the second candidate will answer for 2 minutes, and then there'll be a 30-second rebuttal by the first candidate if they consider it necessary or worthwhile. We are encouraging the audience to provide questions to us. Obviously, we do have time constraints tonight. We're asking you to provide those to us in writing. If we can work them in the time period that's allowed, we will do so. Maybe we'll even substitute them for one of our questions. Given that Ron was chosen by the Democratic side and I was chosen by the Republican side to moderate tonight, there's some balance in the choice of those questions. So again, we encourage you to provide them, and we'll see if we can work them in. Let me see if there's any other of the... No, and then I guess the only other comment would be that it will be the same format when we do the House debates following this. In terms of introducing the candidates, I think we should just go ahead and start with the 2-minute introduction and let them introduce themselves, if that's acceptable. And Carrie, I believe you won the towing cost, so if you'd like to start.
Thanks, I'll jump right in then. Thank you to the Republican Party and the Democratic parties of Eagle for hosting this debate tonight. And also moderators, thank you for finding time in your busy days to work on this. I hope we all found time in our busy day today to reflect on the events of 13 years ago. I've spent the past year and a half traveling around the district of State Senate District 5, and what struck me is the diversity of the 7 counties that make up State Senate District 5, stretching from Chaffee over to Delta, and of course Eagle in the north all the way down to Hinsdale in the south. And I think what's important about that is that the number of different communities that make up this district will need a diverse voice to represent them well at the Capitol. And I believe that I'm uniquely suited to be that voice. My time as an educator, 7 years in a public school, certainly has given me insight into the classrooms. In that same amount of time, I took over the helm of my family's ranch and been running that as a small business. And my time on the Vail Town Council was really enriching. That's a small town with a large budget and a national stage, and really was a great preparing ground for being a state senator. What I've been hearing as I've been traveling around the 7 counties of State Senate District 5 is that we need to create an economy that works for everyone and not just for the wealthy few. And that really resonates when you have conversations with a young gentleman down in Gunnison who talked about, he said, honestly, I would like to vote for you, but I don't know if I'll be around November 4th because I can't find a job right now. And also chatting with, just had a conversation last night with a man who was concerned about how he was going to pay for health care over the upcoming years. And so, you know, I was really raised with a value of service in my family, and I would like to continue that value of service by serving you as your next state senator of State District 5. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, I knew I'd forget. My name is Don Surface, and I am also running for State Senate here in District 5. As my opponent stated, Senate District 5 is quite large. Think Delta to Salida and Lake City to Vail. I know the miles I've put have been a lot of fun, and we've met a lot of great people here in this district. A little bit about myself. I am married to my beautiful wife, Beth, who is here tonight with me, and I thank her so much because without her, I would not be able to do this. We have 4-year-old twin boys that are truly the light of my life. I am the mayor of Orchard City, twice elected, and I also own my own heating and cooling business based out of Delta County. I understand the needs of small government, the needs of business when it comes to dealing with the state. We have been pushed around by a state of Colorado that is growing and getting very over-regulatory, very bureaucratic, and making it hard for the citizens in this state. We are suffering in jobs, we are suffering in incomes. We need to be able to build our economy to make it work for everybody, the working class to the industrial systems. We have to be able to have a good working economy if we want a healthy state and a viable economy. So thank you so much, and I want to thank Eagle County Republicans and Democrats for hosting this, and Eagle County themselves for allowing us to use this room. So thank you.
Thank you, Don. And if I could correct one oversight in my opening remarks, our very efficient timekeeper here is John Knopf, and he'll also be collecting the questions you might have. So if you want to direct them down to him, he'll get them passed over to us. Thanks.
By another coin flip, it was determined that I would ask the first question. I hope that the audience will forgive both Greg and my backs, and I hope the audience will understand, too, that both Greg and I have been invited to address Don and Carrie by their first names, so I hope you won't think us rude if we do so.
Get closer to the microphone.
Thank you.
Nobody has ever asked me to be louder.
It's true.
The perception, I think, among the public, and this question goes to Carrie first, the perception among the public, I think, at all levels of government, is that Democrats and Republicans have failed to work well and effectively together for some period of time. The first question that I have for each of you is, if elected, what concrete acts would you take to reach across the aisle and be effective?
Thanks for that question. I think it is a problem that we have now, and perception, I think, doesn't always match reality. I watched a significant number of the Senate feeds from Denver this year, and over 90% of those bills were passed in a bipartisan manner. That being said, that shows the importance of needing to work across the aisle, and an effective legislator will be someone who can bring everyone together of diverse interests in order to create strong coalitions and teamwork to then tackle the challenges that State Senate District 5 has. But to your question, a specific move to work towards ending the bipartisanship when it does become a roadblock, I would really like to, on day one down in Denver in January, create a Western Slope caucus. That's not something that exists right now. I think there's an amazing opportunity there to bring together all the legislators of the Western Slope and start being a unified voice when those issues come in front that we need to be a unified voice. I also, of course, would include in that Chaffee County, which is the Arkansas Valley, but they tend to align more so with the rural Western issues than with the Front Range urban issues. So that's a very specific, very precise task that I will take on immediately in January and create that Western Slope caucus.
Don, forgive me for just a moment. I presume that you heard and understood the question in anything I asked each of you. If you don't, ask me and I'll be happy to repeat it.
All right, thank you. A lot of the issues we are going to be facing in Colorado are not going to be Republican-Democrat issues. The issues we face in the next several years are going to be urban versus rural issues, especially when it comes to our water, especially when it comes to our land use. These are the times where we need to make sure we have elected representatives that can stand up to their caucus and do what's right for their district. I will be that voice. I've got no problem standing up to my caucus and doing what's best for rural Colorado. Because too many times we have Western Slope legislators that vote with the Denver party of their choice far too many times, and rural Colorado gets left out. So number one, we need to be able to have that rural voice. We need to be able to develop a good, strong not only a Western Slope caucus, but a rural Colorado caucus, so that we can have that voice. Even though we don't have the population numbers Denver do, we need to make sure that our voice is heard, because we have the land, we have the resources, and we need to be able to do what's best with those, because we're the ones that do know what's best, not the people in Denver.
I'm glad you agree with my idea of building a Western Slope caucus. I thought it was a pretty good one myself. And like I said, that doesn't exist now. So, being able to do that in January would be a critical step to making sure that a Western Slope caucus can be a strong voice and bring, right? A Western Slope caucus will be made up of Democrats and Republicans. So by creating a caucus of those Western Slope legislators, you've already created a team that has both parties represented in it.
Thanks. I think I'm up, and I'll direct this to Don first. Do you support Senate Bill 13252, and do you believe it can achieve its objective of doubling renewable energy sources to 20% by the year 2020 without violating the 2% rate increase cap?
I am absolutely opposed to Senate Bill 252. I know many people in the power producing industry, the power transmission industry, that have told me, they've ran the numbers, there is no way that this is physically possible to achieve these mandates at the 2% increase. It just can't be done. The problem is 252 is putting the burden and the pain on working class and retired citizens. We have grandpa and grandma that are trying to decide between meals and medicine or whether they're going to pay their electric bill. In rural Colorado, my family included, we've seen a jump in our electric bill already this year. My wife called me up and said, wow, our bill went up quite a bit this year. I said, what was our usage? Well, it was down from last year. We are using less electricity, we are being more efficient, and we're paying more money. We have to be smarter with how we are using electricity, there's no doubt. I work in the heating and cooling field. I have made a very good living for helping people become more efficient in their homes, having a smaller carbon footprint. It can be done. The problem is we cannot do it on the backs of the poor and working class and the retired citizens of this state. It is unethical and it is wrong. We have this mentality that we need to ship all of our jobs and all of our energy consumption across the sea to the west and let China and India do all our production for us with the coal and whatever means they have necessary, and they are not doing it as cleanly as we are here in the United States of America. It is clean energy that made America the leading manufacturer of the world. So, thank you.
I believe any discussion around energy should be a conversation around opportunity. It's a real issue that down in Gunnison and Delta counties, we had extremely well-trained workers that lost their jobs because of a worldwide trend away from coal energy. At the same time, when we look at 252, and sorry, I hate to get so numbery and jargony, 252 was a clean energy bill. So when we look at clean energy, I see no reason why we can't turn Senate District 5 into a hub of a new energy economy to bring new safe jobs to all of our skilled workers that we already have here. And I think there's so many communities in the Western Slope and in the Arkansas Valley that are known for their innovation. We have small businesses that crop up all the time that just are so surprising about what new idea they've had. So as a state senator, I'll be in a position to have those important conversations, to leverage the resources of the state and convince people that SD5, that State Senate District 5, is the place to invest in Colorado, and also tout the tax rates and all the other work that the state legislature has done to make Colorado such an appealing place to start new business. So the conversation about energy should be a conversation about opportunity. We cannot waste this moment right now looking backwards. We've got to continue to look forward and create opportunities that increase and benefit the economy of SD5 and make it work for all of the citizens of State Senate District 5.
And just to be clear, that means you do think that this can be done within the 2% cap?
Yeah, thanks for allowing that clarification, asking that clarification. Yes, I do, and I'll tell you why. That even the Colorado Rural Electric Association believes that 252 can be good. They were concerned about the timings of the rollouts and being able to catch up with the implementation of a series of bills that have been passed down at the Capitol. But the Colorado Rural Electric Association, CREA, has not suggested a repeal of 252. Does that clarify it further to your satisfaction? Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick facts. Here in Colorado, we pay the second highest electric rates west of the Mississippi. Behind California, they're the only ones higher. And we see what's happening to business and industry in California. It is leaving. Everybody says America is typically 15 to 20 years behind Europe, especially on energy issues. Well, guess what? Right now, Germany is in the process of building 18 coal-fired power plants. They've seen the error of their ways. They've seen what happens when people can't afford energy.
Okay, I'm up. I'm going to direct this to Carrie, if I could. Do you support the 3 new gun laws passed in 2013? If not, would you support repeal of these laws? And the second part to that question, do you support further restrictions on private gun ownership?
Sorry, before I answer the question, could you clarify which 3 laws you were talking about? Because I believe there was 5 passed.
Okay, the 3 I was particularly aware of were the private transfer of guns,
okay.
the magazine issue, and there was one other that I'm blanking on.
There was either the concealed carry permit in
Yes.
person, that
Yes.
was the CC.
Yep.
Sure, yeah, because the other 2 bills that were passed were kind of partner bills, for a lack of a technical term.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for that question. And then you want to follow up with, I'm sorry, what was the second portion of
Just
it?
if you were in favor of further restrictions on private gun ownership.
Okay. I'll start there and then work back to the other 3 laws, if you don't mind. No, at this time I do not support any further restrictions on gun ownership. As a rancher, gun is really a tool, and as growing up in a hunting family where our transition, it's actually this weekend, the transition to summer to fall was marked by nothing more than black powder season. And so I certainly appreciate that on the Western Slope, we have a different culture of guns here. And that's important as a state senator, to be able to express that different in culture and give a broader voice in those discussions. So now let me get to addressing the first part of the question, the 3 specific laws you wanted me to comment on. I would not have supported the 15-round magazine limit. I don't think it's an enforceable law, and I think we've heard that from many of our law enforcement officials across the state. The private-to-private gun transfer background check prevents dangerous criminals from getting guns, and I believe I stand on the side of most members from most of the constituency of SD5 and other sportsmen, believing that was the final loophole in the background check system to be closed. And finally, I think the concealed carry permit And sorry, I'm having to explain them and give my position on them as well, just so everyone knows what we're talking about. But the concealed carry permit law was saying that if you want the right to carry a concealed gun, you need to go in person and take those testings and do those classings in person. That seems like a very obvious law that I support. I think that one makes a lot of sense. That's a common sense gun safety law that I have no problem standing behind.
Thank you very much.
Or are you?
No, we're good. I absolutely disagree with these gun laws 100%. They are in violation of the Constitution. Our Second Amendment is very clearly written when it comes to the ownership and the possession of arms. I don't believe that the problem with guns is our current situation. Oh, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't believe the gun problem can be fixed by punishing the law-abiding citizen. And that is what these bills did. These bills punished the law-abiding citizen rather than going after the criminals that commit the crime. We have to get smarter when we are writing our gun laws that we go after the people committing the crimes. We have to be better at helping with mental health. Right now, mental health in this state is woefully underfunded. I've talked to several sheriffs in this district. That is a common theme throughout this district. We need more mental health funding. These guys are taking people in, they need help, they need somebody to talk to, and they're getting turned away because there's not enough money. The problem isn't the guns. We need to fix these laws, and I will be all for repealing these gun laws.
Carrie?
Yes, there was an addition I would like to make a comment on the part of the legislation that was passed. I think we also need to, and this is coming from conversations I've had with not only our local gun shop owner, but as a gun shop owner over in the Roaring Fork Valley as well, that there needs to be some further work done by the state in looking at the burden on small business and also making sure that the state is supporting these small businesses and gun shop owners as they try to follow the new laws. So that's another aspect that I'd like to work on.
Thank you.
This question goes to Don first, and forgive me if I'm a little esoteric, but hang with me, you'll get it. Rabbi Hillel, the first century BCE scholar and theologian, was once famously asked to explain the Torah while standing on one foot. I'm going to ask you each to, at least metaphorically, stand on one foot and summarize who you are, what you stand for, and what you believe.
Okay, that's easy. I don't even have to do it on one foot. I am a small businessman. I am a small government man. I have made it my career and my life in public service to be efficient and effective with the taxpayer dollar, and I have been very successful at it as a mayor of Orchard City. Orchard City has probably got one of the best looking financial statements of any municipality in the state, and that is because it takes some real leadership and it takes somebody to stand on their principles when it comes to protecting the taxpayer dollar. I also understand what happens when unfunded mandates get pushed down from federal and state agencies, whether it be municipalities, counties, school districts, any special district you can imagine. It becomes more expensive, and guess what? They're going to pass that cost on to the end user, the taxpayer. Same way with business. Business in this state is the tax collector, the debt collector, the regulation enforcer. Colorado should be better to its businesses. It is the businesses that are bringing in the money and keeping this state alive. And I am all for business and making business better, because when business is better, families have more money. When families have more money, life is just better.
Carrie?
I was already able to comment on, I think, the diversity of roles that I've held in my experience that I think qualifies me to be a good legislator, but I feel like you're going a little bit more esoteric in your question, so I'm going to try to go a little bit more philosophical perhaps in my answer. I was raised with a full belief that your word is your worth, and that's what makes
I don't have much to add. You know, my dad was a policeman in Delta, where I grew up, for 28 years. He was chief for Trinidad. But, you know, that alone doesn't qualify me to run for state senate. What qualifies me to run for state senate is my abilities as a businessman, what I've done as a mayor, and what I have done to serve the community.
Next question is also mine, and goes to, where did we start? Kerry. It goes with Kerry next, I'm sorry. As a state senator, what do you think is the foremost legislative concern for Eagle County?
For Eagle County, I think the foremost legislative concerns are two. The first one is going to be with infrastructure, and the second one is with healthcare. And this is what I've been hearing during a lot of meaningful conversations on doors and on porches with folks over in the Roaring Fork Valley part of Eagle County, as well as the greater Eagle Valley part of Eagle County. So let me address the first one, infrastructure. That primarily becomes a discussion about I-70. And solutions for I-70 are big solutions. And the way you get those issues solved is you are a constant and strong voice for the I-70 corridor at the Capitol as a state senator. I believe that we can attack the I-70 issue in two ways. One, with continuing innovative solutions that look at social media as a way to encourage off-peak travel, ideas like that. But we can't forget bricks and mortar solutions otherwise while we're having a conversation about social media. Bricks and mortar solution means finding the dollars to do projects along the entire I-70 corridor that make that an efficient and effective transportation vein. The other one that I talked about was healthcare. That's a broader discussion. It has many aspects to it. One is just the simple ability to afford healthcare. As we all know, the ACA rollout in the high country came with it some pretty disastrous fees that we're feeling the burden of. So we need to work on that issue in particular, but also having a broader effort on improving healthcare in Eagle County. And I think we can do that by attracting health and wellness industries and companies to the Eagle County, which would make healthcare more affordable and more accessible.
Don?
You know, as the time I've spent in Eagle County in the last year and a half, I kind of question, you know, what happened with Eagle County and CDOT? Holy cow. You know, somebody needs to send somebody some flowers somewhere, because it is amazing. As I travel the district, it seems like the most road problems and road construction mishaps seem to happen in Eagle County. So obviously something needs to be done with CDOT on that level, that you know, we start worrying about what gets done within the borders of Eagle County. For the tourism industry, for everything that Eagle County has to offer, you have to have transportation to get back and forth to Denver. That's just part of it. It's part of life in Eagle County, and that is one of my very big goals as senator, is to try to deal with these situations with CDOT, to deal with the road closure issues on I-70 during the winter time. We've had so many road closures this last winter. Granted, we had some snow, but we've had more snow in the past with less closures. The road conditions are absolutely out of control. What the poor people of the town of Eagle are going through out here on the interstate is just incredible. So that's probably the #1 goal as far as Eagle County goes when it comes to the time in the state legislature, because transportation has just got to be key. That is one of the foremost requirements of government, is good roads to get goods to service to market.
Gary?
I think signaling out CDOT as the bad guy is oversimplifying the problem. And when I was on the Vail Town Council, we had a great working relationship with CDOT and talking about solutions for the Vail Pass corridor, and I think we made some real progress on that. Simply just talking about who is responsible for which sections. That very simple, open, frank discussion moved the needle on how the town of Vail was able to handle some I-70 congestion.
I believe it's, I'm up, and this question is to Don. Senate Bills 251 and 33 provide for driver's license and in-state tuition rates, respectively, for those who cannot prove they are in this country legally. Do you believe these benefits or laws could possibly encourage further illegal immigration, especially with regard to teenagers and children?
Los entes mexicanos y nosotros quieren mismos. Queremos dinero buenos, quiero trabajos buenos, quiero seguridad para las familias. In essence, the Mexican folks that have come here, whether legally or illegally, they want the same things we do. They want jobs, they want a place to raise their family, they want safety for their family, they want security. Our problems with in-state tuition that's not the issue here. We have kids that we're paying for them to go to school that are here illegally. K through 12, we are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a child's education. Then we're sending them to college, giving them in-state tuition to no avail because they can't get a job. They're not legal citizens. I have had conversations with Scott Tipton and other U.S. representatives on this issue. This is a federal issue that needs to be resolved. We have people here that want to be citizens. We have people here that just want a job. We have to fix this issue. Sad thing is, on a state level, anything we do is not fixing the issue. We need to push the federal government to fix the issue.
And do you think just to be clear, do you think what was done on the state level then, the benefits outweigh any possible detriments of those bills?
Once again, the problem is the benefits are pandering. We are pandering because we're not fixing the problem. Just because we give somebody in-state tuition and they graduate with a great degree from one of our Colorado institutions does not mean that they get a job. So it's not fixing the problem. We have to fix the problem.
Carrie?
As a state senator, the critical and broader conversation of immigration reform, the role there will be to pressure the Congress to make meaningful movement on this issue. To specifically comment on the two bills that you talked about, which I think are the asset bill and the driver's license bill. The asset bill was a way for undocumented students and workers to pay the same rates to go to college as anyone else. I think when we get any young person into our college system, it creates a better overall community. And I don't think that it would encourage any increase immigration into Colorado. The driver's license bill that you referred to, I think, is a great attempt by the state of Colorado to be proactive while DC is being so inactive. And while it has had some failures in its rollout because of its underfunding and few locations where it is available, I think it does do the job of bringing everyone into the system and making this state as a whole safer.
You know, I get out, I talk to a lot of these folks. You know, not only in my profession on the job do I get to talk to them, but out on the campaign trail, I've got a chance to talk to a lot of them. They, you know, the more that we promote these types of programs, the more will come. To say that it's not going to increase the amount of illegal traffic to this state, that is just naive. But we have some serious financial and budget issues that we have to worry about in this state that take care of our citizens, not just the illegal ones.
Thank you. My next question is to Carrie. If not for its defeat at the polls, Amendment 66 would have been the largest tax increase in Colorado's history, ostensibly for improving education. As I understand, this amendment has the chance of resurfacing in future years because of the nature of the way it was put together. If it did so, would you support it? Would you support it despite, I think, the reason that it was lost by a margin of about 2-1 of its perceived lack of educational objectives and measurements?
Right. Right. Amendment 66 was an attempt over a year ago to find some increased funds to support educational, new educational ideas in the state of Colorado. And you're right, it was soundly defeated. But what I've seen in the classroom is there's real work to be done. We have created over a series of initiatives coming from the Capitol an incredible testing burden on our students. My 6th grade students spend 30% of their time in a classroom taking tests. Additionally to that, serving alongside teachers, having conversations with administrators, we have another very serious issue about funding our students in this state. We are 43rd in the country of the level that we fund students. That is not a value that I think Colorado should be okay with. The budget should be a reflection of our values, and Colorado clearly values education. We have one of the most educated populations in the country, but we're not growing them at home, we're importing that education. What we have to do is go down and look at programs that work and continue to fund those, but also not be afraid to do the hard work of finding programs that don't work and eliminating those. Until we do that work, until we as state senators sit down and make sure that we don't have any inefficiencies in the programs that we are funding or the mandates that we're pushing out, I don't think the voters of Colorado are going to tolerate another tax increase.
And just to be sure I understood that, and since that wasn't in Amendment 66 the way it was first presented, it sounds like you wouldn't have supported it if it resurfaced in its exact same form.
I would, until we go down and take a hard look at where we can cut and find ineffective or inefficient programs that exist in the budget either, right? We need to look at the state's budget and make sure it's running lean and mean before we can have any expectation of putting any tax increase out there. A request for a tax increase, excuse me.
That answers it. Don?
I absolutely would not support Amendment 66 again. I did not support it last time. Amendment 23 of our state constitution is very specific when it comes to school funding. Last year, we had a fairly good year in Colorado as far as government revenue goes. This democratically controlled legislature could have used that money for education. They chose not to. Instead, they came to us for a tax increase. I will agree with my opponent. I don't think the taxpayers of Colorado will vote for another tax increase, especially one that is just an open-end bar tab that does not have any proven results. We have to go back to local control of our education. What works in Vail is not necessarily going to work in Delta. We have to be able to give our local school districts the flexibility they need to spend the money they see fit the best way they can. Because not every school district is the same. Commerce City, Colorado, spends more money per pupil than any district in the state. They also have the lowest graduation rate. It's not about money, it's about the education system. We have great teachers in this state, fantastic teachers, but they are being held down by a system of rules that does not make it easy for them. I was visiting a school in Delta just the other day, and one of the administrators, he said, you know, if there's one thing you can do for us, more money, less rules. That's the consensus amongst the educators out there. They want less mandates coming down from the feds, less mandates coming down from the states. Let them teach the students the way they see fit with the qualified staff they have. Thank you.
Gary, any additional thoughts?
Yes, you know, I think there certainly is a discussion that you can't just throw money and money solves everything. But just yesterday, I was told that by a mother who had 2 high school age kids that they were a junior and a senior and they had yet to have a textbook. And now they were going into an AP class where they were expected to wade through a college level text and they didn't even have the skills to know how to approach a textbook. So funding doesn't mean everything, but we have to have enough dollars to provide for the basic necessities to let a teacher teach.
My question goes to Don first, and I hope Greg will forgive me for speaking for both of us. But Greg and I have been limited by the creativity of our own minds in terms of questions to ask, and by the limitation of 4 questions each. Both of you have been campaigning now for several months. We're about 8 weeks out from the election. I want to ask each of you where you believe you differ the most from your opponent.
Well, that's an interesting question. What I've noticed in the last probably 15 to 20 years that I've been involved in politics on a county level and witnessing it at a state and national level is we have a lot of Democrats that run as conservatives, and then when they take the oath of office, they remember their liberal roots. We have a current state senator from this district, which you folks did not vote for her because she got reapportioned into Eagle County. But she ran on a very conservative platform. Every place she went, she talked conservative principles, conservative ideas, and then she goes to Denver and she votes with Denver Democrats 98% of the time. I don't have that issue. What I have said is who I am. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to try to buy votes. I want people to vote for me because of what I say, and that I will stand by what I say. And if they choose not to vote for me because of my principles, I respect them for that. But I will not be trying to talk a line someplace else to earn vote from somebody that it does not stand on the same side as me when it comes to principles.
Gary?
And sorry, I'll repeat the question because I know that the president of the Republican Party thought that it might not have come over the mic. So it was just a question about contrast as we have 8 weeks leading into the...
Right. The question specifically is where you believe you differ most from your opponent.
Thank you. I'll focus on that one specifically then. I think where we differ most is our value of public lands and how we see those to the future of the state of Colorado. And I'm just going to touch on this one issue because I think it is one of our most critical differences. Public lands in the state of Colorado provide a $17 billion industry. It's a huge economic driver of the state of Colorado and of the 7 counties of SD5. As hunters, as fishermen, as rafters, as hikers, BLM and our federal lands are critical to our economy and to the quality of life in these 7 counties. I think we must be very cognizant of any discussion that moves away from those protections on those public lands and keeping them under control of the BLM. The BLM manages lands to protect resources for everyone and multi-uses on all of those lands and for future generations. When we talk about removing public lands and turning them back over to the state land board manages lands to make money. There's nothing wrong with that for the parcels that they do get to manage to create money for our schools, but turning over the immense amount of public land in SD5 to a state-controlled board is either going to result in, because all state lands are private. Any land run by the state land board is private land. So any discussion or proposition of talking about turning those public lands back over to the state to be controlled by the state land board, I think is a very critical difference.
And you have rebuttal time.
Thank you very much. What my opponent is referring to is the American Lands Council approach that's being taken in Utah right now. The state of Utah is tired of the federal government coming in and denying access and use of the public lands currently held by the feds. I personally I really hope that the federal government can use these public lands with us and let us enjoy not only access to them, but the minerals and everything else that goes along with them. But we have to be able to hold the federal government, we have to be able to hold their feet to the fire when it comes to that.
We have reached closing statements, and Carrie, since you went first on opening statements, Don will get the last remark. So you're first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant to yell at.
No.
My apologies. I was settling back into my
I
seat.
need to be more clear. I'm sorry.
No, I think that's me, not you. Thanks again, everyone, for your time this evening and participating in this important part of the democratic process. You all have an important decision to make this election season when you decide who to vote for, and remember to look for your ballots in the middle of October. This is, coming off the last question, I think, is a perfect segue to talk about that often when you're making a decision between candidates, to look for contrast and then base your decision on that. And I think there is real contrast beyond us, just beyond the public lands question that we just addressed. I believe in keeping public lands public. I also think that any conversation when we talk about energy is another clear line of contrast. And I believe you can't look backwards. There's no opportunity when you look backwards. We've got to seize this moment in time and create a new energy economy for SD5. And finally, I think there's contrast between us also in the field of education. My experience my experience in a public school will allow me to be a strong and informed voice as a state senator down in SD5. State Senate District 5 is filled with numerous communities with diverse needs and diverse personalities, and they'll need a voice that can speak for all the constituents of Senate District 5 and those 7 counties. And I'm qualified to work for everyone that makes up State Senate District 5. As an educator, as a rancher, and as my experience on the town of Vail, I have that voice that will be respected by my fellow legislators and will be the voice for the people of this district. I wear ski boots and I wear cowboy boots, and that means that I can go down there and walk a lot of different lines for everyone. So I really hope that I can serve as your next state senator, and I ask you for your vote. Thank you.
Don, final comments.
First of all, thank you guys so much for the questions. Timekeeper, it's not an easy job. You guys did a great job, so thank you guys so much. You know, segueing off of what my opponent just said, you know, we talk about a new energy economy in SD5. I happen to personally know a lot of the 300 coal miners that lost their jobs in Delta County. I personally know the about 1,000 people that are facing losing their jobs because of the loss of those jobs at the coal mine. And yes, would I absolutely love to be able to have a new, vibrant energy economy in SD5? Absolutely. but the sheer economics don't work that way. If we push this any harder, any farther, it will be the working class, the retired, that pay the price. We cannot do that to them anymore. They're already suffering as it is. Currently, Colorado is looking at $4,000 less per year in annual income. Unemployment's down, but guess what? So are paychecks. We need to build the paychecks. We need to build the business economy. I'm a small businessman. I understand business. I'm a small government guy. I understand what it takes to run an effective government, and I have a track record to prove it. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. It's been fun. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Thanks. I don't know how you got that straight. Thank you so much.
We're going to roll right into the next session here. Just give us a couple minutes to... Some objection otherwise, I think we'll go ahead and jump into the next debate here on House District 26, with the House District 26 candidates. And I believe we'll just start with the introductions. Chuck, I believe you won the coin toss, so you have your first 2-minute introduction.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Eagle County. I'm Chuck McConnell, and I live in Steamboat Springs, and I'm a candidate to represent you, Routt County and Eagle counties in the Colorado House. A little bit about me: my education is chemical engineering, and my career took me through several years as an engineer and then led into management, where I ran a division of an energy company, Fortune 500 energy company, and then became CEO of a public company. After I retired and nearly went crazy, I helped my oldest daughter run her mountain bike pro shop for a couple of years. We had about 30 employees, and most of them were about 22 years old. It was a lot of fun. As an engineer in the energy industry and a businessman, working together with people was absolutely necessary. The first thing a young engineer does is to walk into a control room in a refinery and say, I know everything that there is to know. And you soon find out that you don't know all that, and working with the operators is an absolute necessity for your success. My vision for Colorado is that we maintain and grow our Western culture and reputation as a self-reliant, beautiful mountain and plains destination for visitors, hunters, and entrepreneurs. Lately, I have become very concerned about what I believe is the negative impact on the state when a single-party government is out of touch with the citizens. I believe that the definition of a representative is that I represent you, and I'll give you more on that as time goes on. My vision is a positive one for Colorado, and I will work hard to make that a reality. I'm Chuck McConnell, and I thank you guys, everybody, for being here, and all the people who are putting this on.
Diane?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Huge thanks to the Eagle County Republicans and the Eagle County Democrats for putting on this forum. I'm Diane Mitch Bush. I am your representative, and I am honored and humbled to work for you, to serve you in the Colorado House. I'm proud to represent Eagle County and Routt County, two beautiful headwaters counties, two counties with clean air, free-flowing rivers, and clean water, innovative, diverse economies, and the greatest people anywhere. Hardworking, creative, and caring people. I'm running for re-election on my record and on promises kept. I promised you I'd go down to Denver, roll up my sleeves, and work across the continental divide and the partisan divide to help build a better future for all Coloradans. My record shows that I've done that. I've gained a reputation down at the Capitol for honesty, integrity, for cutting red tape, for effectiveness, for fiscal responsibility and bipartisanship, and for always voting my district, not a party line, not ideology. All 13 of my bills passed with bipartisan support. That was because I brought together all the stakeholders for all my bills, not after I drafted the bill, but before it. Bringing everyone to the table is absolutely critical for getting the job done. I co-sponsored a variety of small business support bills, tax incentives for job creation, job training bills, and a variety of assistance programs. I co-sponsored bills to assist veterans. I co-sponsored bills to invest in our robust rural broadband infrastructure. And I co-sponsored bills to invest in our children's future, from preschool to graduate school. It's critical that they have the opportunity to succeed. I've been your strong mountain community voice down at the Capitol, and I'm eager to keep on being that, and I would ask for your vote. Thank you.
And I believe I'll get things started with the first question to Chuck. Do you support bans on fracking on either a local, as we've seen some townships here in Colorado, or on a state basis, as we've seen with the state of New York?
Thank you for the question. I do not support bans on fracking. I was in the oil and gas hydrocarbon business for much of my career, and as a chemical engineer, I got to see it from the drilling phase through the refining and downstream phases. I have been convinced, because I have gone to see Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission meetings. That is the group that oversees oil and gas in the state of Colorado. They have professionals on their team who have created the most comprehensive and toughest laws for drilling and fracking in the United States. Drilling and fracking to produce hydrocarbons creates tremendous numbers of jobs, and these are high-paying jobs. They aren't the $7.25 an hour jobs that are being talked about now. These are good jobs. The energy that is produced in Colorado becomes a part of the entire American energy mix that helps us get to be energy independent from the sheikhs in the Middle East and from Mr. Putin in Russia. I don't want to be beholden to him, and right here in Colorado, we have an opportunity to help make that divorcement from those folks a reality. If I didn't think that this was a safe endeavor, there's no way in the world I would be for it. As a chemical engineer, part of my responsibility was for the environment. We couldn't do things as an engineer that were against the environment. I wouldn't be for something that was. Even the Democrat governor of the state of Colorado is a fan of fracking. Thank you.
It's fracking and directional drilling that have created the shale oil revolution and the shale gas revolution in Colorado, which have created jobs and have created American Colorado-based energy. Fracking itself, the cement casing that is inspected by the COGCC, the Oil and Gas Commission, is probably one of the safest parts of the process. So banning fracking would not remove some of the other issues and problems. There are issues with spills. There are issues with methane escaping. Those are the issues we need to be able to deal with. Fracking is very tightly regulated. Those cement casings are very, very well crafted. The problems that we've seen in the Western Slope in Garfield County with Divide Creek and Mam Creek came about because subcontractors didn't do it right. They didn't follow the rules. In Routt County, my home county, we've had fracked wells since the 40s. We've had horizontally drilled and fracked wells more recently, and again, we had one case in which cement casing was not done right. They got called on that by the COGCC. I think our current regulations regarding casing and fracking are good. We just need more enforcement, and I've supported bills which provided more FTE, full-time equivalents, for enforcement. My 1278 in 2013 was a bill that I worked with the oil and gas industry, the environmentalists, the counties, and the towns on to essentially protect our water bodies from spills. That's what's critical, is making sure that spills don't get into our rivers and creeks. Also, this year, we have increased the budget this past year to buy more infrared cameras. FLIR cameras allow us in the actual production site, not E&P, not exploration, but the actual production site, to monitor the escape of methane gas, which is often, again, operator error. And we have tight regulations for that, but you need to know it's there. You need to have those FLIR cameras.
Any further comments, Chuck?
Yes, thank you. Let me read something from the Steamboat paper today. Hickenlooper warned that the anti-fracking initiatives, if passed, would have harmed Colorado's economy. As far as methane escape is concerned, I was in that business. There are monitoring things all over every one of those wells, and those monitoring data are transmitted by telemetry to central headquarters. If there is an issue of escape of methane, that is known, and these are oil companies, at least in Routt County, that are reputable companies, and they won't let things like that go on.
If you'll forgive me for just a moment for interposing myself in today's electronic world, a viewer watching on TV just sent me a text saying that the sound is off on TV. So I wonder if we might pause for a minute, the sound is off, and see if we can get that running. If elected, to vote your will, the collective will of the constituency, or the directive of the party?
Definitely not the directive of the party. I told the speaker in 2013 that constituents were saying I just voted with the party. He burst into laughter. He said, "Oh my Lord, if only they knew. If only they knew what you're really like." I'm getting a sign that we need to get this closer to us. I don't vote a party line. I vote my constituents. I'm known for that. I'm known for voting what's called voting your district. Now that's really easy when the majority of your constituents agree, when 80–90% of people agree on a bill, which they do on most. It's much more difficult when the majority wants it one way, but there's a minority, and this is always a problem in democracy, that wants it another way. You have to carefully weigh that, you have to look at all the facts, and again, make your decision. I think, to me, government should be to serve the people, to serve the constituents in Eagle County and Routt County, and to provide everyone with a level playing field so that a small business can compete against a bigger business, so that all our kids have an opportunity to get ahead and succeed. In order to do that, I have to be able to carefully explain bills to you, my constituents. And I have a group of constituents that I email almost immediately on particular issues when a bill comes up, and of course I get hundreds and hundreds of emails every day during the session, and my aide summarizes those for me, and then I get back to those individuals. I pride myself on listening to all points of view, looking at all the data. Some of you know I'm a quantitative social scientist, so I'm a nerd. I like to look at the data, and I especially like to listen to my constituents, knowing full well that people may have had misinformation about a bill. That was one of the more surprising things in 2013. I got used to it in 2014. Many times constituents will write me and say, well, this bill does this. Actually, that's not what that bill does at all. So part of what I have to do is explain what the bill does.
Chuck?
Thank you. You know, I said in my opening comments that my definition of a representative was to represent. And Ron, I think that that probably summarizes in a very 30,000-foot level my theory of government. There are 70-some thousand people in this district, and I am a listener. I will listen to those people. As far as the party is concerned, there are issues that the Republican Party is divided on within the cohort of representatives and senators in Denver. I'm going to vote with my constituents on those. That's not even a question. I would like to say that there were a couple of times in which my opponent didn't seem to do that, and Amendment 66 was one of them. And we had this discussion in Grand Junction on the past weekend, and also on the gun bills. And I think those questions may come up a little bit later on, and I'd be glad to expand on it then. But I really can't say a whole lot more than I believe in representing. I believe in listening. To think that I would go to Denver and that would believe that somehow my intelligence was the thing that was needed to bring to the bear is absolutely out of the question. The people that I represent, the people up and down Main Street, the people who live in this county, who work in this county, who work in Routt County, those are the people that I'm going to represent.
Diane, you have a short rebuttal.
I represent my constituents. The votes that he was talking about, the first one, let me clarify because it was unclear. Amendment 66 was voted on by the people, not by the Colorado House and Senate. We voted on Senate Bill 213, which was an education funding bill that required a citizen initiative. I supported that bill because the majority of my constituents asked me to. And I carefully read the bill. And I knew that it did require a citizen initiative, which came and went, and that amendment went down in flames.
This question goes to Chuck first. In very concrete and specific terms, how would you support business expansion, innovation, and business startup creation?
My answer on that question in terms of supporting innovation and job creation, it is the same all the time. I believe that regulations within the state and within the county and the city are things that slow down and stop job creation. I think that regulations are absolutely necessary, but regulations that are necessary are only those that are necessary. We pile regulations on top of regulations, and that tends to put a damper on job creation. Another thing that I think is that money, entrepreneurship, follows where their money will be treated the best. And where taxes are taxes are low, regulations are reasonable, then that creates a flood of entrepreneurial spirit, new job creation. I think that small company job creation, and especially in this area where a lot of people who are, let's say, geographically neutral, they can work here or anywhere because they're working online. We've got tremendous opportunities for that if we make it a place that is welcoming for those companies and those people.
Diane?
In the past 3 years, Colorado has gone from 40th to 4th in job creation. We've been recognized as first in entrepreneurship, and new business creation. One of the reasons is because of the kinds of business assistance bills that I've supported. Tax credits for job creation, reducing the rate of the business personal property tax, the first time it was done. I strongly believe in cutting unnecessary red tape. But to say blanketly, let's just reduce regulation, doesn't tell us which regulations. You have to study regulations to understand which ones are really keeping business from flourishing. I, along with my Republican friend, Don Coram, ran a bill on small hydropower to make that permitting process easier for small businesses. That will create rural jobs. I ran another bill that took away the very onerous permitting process for divisible loads. That helps trucking, it helps a number of other industries as well. So I think it's important to look at red tape and to level the playing field. One of the keys for good government is to make a level playing field so that a small business that doesn't have a huge procurement department can compete. That's what we did in the PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Centers bill. We provided assistance for smaller companies that would like to get government contracts. And I know of 2 businesses that have been using that bill. And indeed, for them, it has allowed them to create more jobs. So we create more jobs with specific programs. We go out and ask businesses, what do you need? What do you need to expand? What kinds of incentives do you need? What kinds of regulations don't work for you, and let's get rid of them. But let's not get rid of environmental regulations, community safety regulations, regulations which level out that playing field for all kinds of businesses. And in addition, provide assistance. Our small business development centers are very, very helpful for our businesses in Colorado. I've always worked with business as a commissioner, and I have as a representative.
Chuck, you have a short rebuttal.
Thank you. Please don't anyone leave here thinking that I'm talking about blanket cutting of regulations. That's just not that had nothing to do with what I said. I'm talking about cutting specific regulations that are blankets for new business startup. The other thing is, I think that there has been an effort recently to reduce old regulations that are no longer a part of the everyday business. I think that getting rid of old, unnecessary regulations is probably as important in some cases as how many bills you pass.
I have the next question. I'm going to direct it to Diane. I'm going to have to amend this a little. I did ask it of the Senate candidates as well regarding the 3 new gun laws. I believe you did support those. Is that correct?
Yes, I voted for House Bills 1229, 1226, and 1228. 1229 provided for closing a loophole that we had in Colorado for private transfers, especially internet transfers. CBI data, Colorado Bureau of Investigation data from July of 2013 to July of 2014 show that with those private background checks, we were able to prevent convicted violent felons from obtaining guns. Felons who had been convicted of sexual assault, felons who had been convicted of aggravated assault, felons who were under restraining orders for domestic violence. My first husband was a police officer, and believe you me, the most dangerous situation for a police officer is domestic violence situations, because that's when you get shot, the police officer gets shot. So it's critical to keep those guns out of the hands of criminals. The 15 magazine limit is a secondary enforcement tool, not a primary one. You don't go around looking for people with 15 round magazines. What you do is when you arrest someone on probable cause for aggravated assault, or heaven forbid, for homicide, for sexual assault, if they used that magazine, then you, the arresting officer, you, the DA, can add that to the charges. The other one was concealed carry, and that essentially focused around having to get in-person classes for concealed carry instead of simply taking a test over the internet.
And if you could, the second part of that, I don't remember, I'm not sure you remembered it, regarding future, do you support additional restrictions or future restrictions on private gun ownership?
No, I do not. These weren't restrictions in my mind on gun ownership as much as trying to prevent guns from getting into the hands of violent criminals. I did a lot of research and had our legislative legal services do a lot of research on the Heller decision, the Supreme Court decision, that struck down Washington, D.C.'s rule, which essentially banned a type of handgun. That is inappropriate. We shouldn't be doing that. But what Justice Scalia opined was that there were rails that state and federal government could put on, which we've done in the past, by the way, when we got rid of machine guns in the 1930s.
Chuck?
I absolutely did not support any of those 3 bills in any manner. Let me start with the transfer thing. Folks, the transfer bill 1229 basically talked about transferring among law-abiding citizens. And law-abiding citizens, I've got
30 seconds on rebuttal. I'm sorry, go ahead, Chuck. My bad.
Law-abiding citizens aren't the ones we're dealing with. People who are not law-abiding, who are offenders, don't register their guns. They pass them from one to the other. They sell them to each other, and there's no registration. I was robbed at gunpoint in 1990 in my condominium with my wife at the time, and the 2 guys who robbed us, one of them held us at gunpoint, and one of them got my hunting rifles and a pistol, and they didn't have any idea of any registration or getting a concealed carry permit. So we're not protecting from those people. As far as the 15 mag limit, that was a ridiculous law because you just have no idea when a magazine was built. Let me go to this, and I think this is very important. 54 sheriffs in the state of Colorado, and a sheriff, as everybody probably knows, is the #1 law enforcement official in a county. They were against these bills because they were unenforceable, they didn't help law-abiding citizens, and they didn't make us safer. And as far as the second half of that question, no, sir, I don't think that we can impose any more limits on law-abiding citizens and make the world safer. These horrific crimes that are committed by people with high velocity weapons are done in basically no-gun zones, folks.
Diane, you have 30 seconds.
The private transfer law, it's not going to take every gun away from every criminal. What it has done, and the data from CBI show this, is that it has prevented a significant number of convicted violent felons from getting a gun. Moreover, although the sheriffs opposed these bills, the police chiefs of Colorado were for them. The police chiefs were for them, and again, I talked once again during this process to my first husband. We've been divorced for a very long time, we're still very good friends. He was a police officer. He said if he was still an officer, he would have supported them too.
The next question is mine, I believe. Yes, and it's to Chuck. What are your thoughts on increased federal government influence on K through 12 education in our state as opposed to more control through locally elected school boards?
Thank you for that question. I have absolutely zero interest in increased federal control, top-down federal control on our school system. I believe that what happens in our nation, and that is that we have local school boards made up of parents and people in the community who are the closest to the community. I think those are the people who have traditionally been the people who make the rules, who enforce the rules, who are part of our K through 12 education. To think that something can come from Washington, D.C. that is a one-size-fits-all solution for K through 12, for the enhancement, for higher scores, to me is absolutely a non-starter. I don't think it is something that we should ever have anything to do with.
I couldn't agree more. We don't want federal control over our local school systems. Colorado is a local control state. Colorado does have statewide Colorado academic standards, which were put together by teachers, by principals, by parents before this whole issue of Common Core ever came up during the more recent administration. Local school boards know how to do it, they know what to do, and they have budgetary control. I have always supported local school districts, always will. As your representative, I strongly supported giving back the money for the negative factor to the school districts so they could decide, not mandates from the state. I totally disagree with unfunded mandates from the state of Colorado, and I certainly would never support federal control, and by the way, that's not what's going on in Colorado. Colorado, we've done it the Colorado way, with the Colorado academic standards that our local schools, and I've visited all of our local schools, all the grade levels of our local schools in Eagle County and in Routt County, and it's just amazing to see the great job teachers are doing with teaching critical thinking, with being flexible, with teaching to individual kids, not to some federal standard, but rather to individual kids. That's the key. That's why I support local control of schools.
Chuck, 30 seconds. Any additional thoughts?
Well, this is terrific. Diane and I disagree on a number of, I think, incredibly important issues, but I can't think of anything to say that I didn't agree with her, what she just said.
All right.
If each of you, or if one of you is elected to this seat, and let's say the legislature came into a large sum of money, make a number up here, $500 million. Understanding that most of the budget is earmarked and is spoken for, where would you put that windfall money? Diane, I start with you.
Oh, sorry. I would start with transportation, and in particular with the I-70 corridor. I've worked, as some of you know, for many years, for over 30 years, on transportation policy issues throughout the state of Colorado. I've worked hard on the I-70 corridor and on other issues as well. That's where we need the money. CDOT's budget is the same as it was over 20 years ago. The gas tax has been the basis, both the state gas tax and the federal gas tax, for CDOT's funding. Those are stuck where they were in 1991 in Colorado and 1993 at the federal level. At the same time, construction costs have gone up over 60%. So we would certainly be able to use those funds, again, using our bottom-up transportation planning process, where local areas choose the projects that they think are the most important, and then that funnels up to the Statewide Transportation Advisory Committee, which I used to serve on for 6 years from Routt County. And then, of course, the Transportation Commission makes the final decision on exactly what projects to spend money on. That's the first place I'd put it. The second place I would put it is water and wastewater projects, especially rural water and wastewater projects. There are a number of unfunded mandates regarding especially sewage treatment, but other issues as well with regard to water and wastewater that some of our local districts, especially our smaller towns, just don't have the wherewithal to pay for. At the state level, we have a revolving grant fund, but it's not nearly enough to cover what we need to really fix that infrastructure. And the next place is, of course, education. Education is critical to who we are, to what we are, and for our future. We have to provide opportunities for all our kids. It's already been said tonight that we're 43rd in per pupil funding. Luckily, in the last session, we went and increased that a little bit from recession levels, but we're not even close in terms of being able to fund adequate class sizes, adequate textbooks, computers, and so on.
Chuck?
Well, actually, I'm a little bit along the same line. I think transportation is incredibly important, especially in Eagle County, where we have the bottlenecks that we have on I-70. And that's kind of been covered. One thing that also came up in another debate that we had that I believe very strongly in, we still have bridges in this state that are deemed as being insufficient. We've seen on television over the years what has happened when bridges are not properly maintained. Because the infrastructure of this nation and this state have been around for many, many years, and a lot of these bridges, for example, have not been updated, I think that that extra money that you talked about would be well spent to do those bridge safety issues, for example, that there hasn't been money allocated in the past to take care of. On the water side of things, I really am big for water storage. I think that we have water that leaves our state that is for the state of Colorado. It is our water, and it's going downstream. I think that a lot of reservoir expansion projects and a lot of new reservoir projects get to a certain point of planning, and then they get stopped. Many times by small vocal special interests. I would work hard to see if we could get some of those projects moved down the line further so that we could increase our water storage. And I guess the final thing is, and there's been some work, House Bill 1328 was intended to, and I think will increase broadband to rural Colorado. I'm someone who believes that that's an excellent thing, and if that extra money could be used to possibly speed that up for education, for business purposes, I think that would be another good use for the money.
Diane, you have a short rebuttal.
In fact, bridges are already covered by the 2009 FASTER bill. In particular, in that bill, there is a bridge fee section. We have already fixed well over 100 and some bridges, but as my opponent pointed out, we have an infrastructure perfect storm. We have lots more bridges we have to fix, but we currently do have monies to fix that. So that is not the first place that I would put that money, because we already have dedicated funding for that. I certainly agree that broadband is critical, and I voted for 1328 and worked hard on it behind the scenes with the stakeholders.
The last of my questions is directed to Chuck first, and it's a question that I asked the Senate candidates, and I think it's a useful question to ask again. And that is, draw a distinction, if you will, for where you are most different from your opponent in your philosophy.
Okay, this is going to be counter to some of the things we've heard this evening. I told you that I believe that my job as a representative is to represent you folks, the people in Routt County and Eagle County. I believe that there were too many instances in which my opponent didn't do that. On 30 tax and fee increase bills, my opponent voted for those bills to increase taxes and fees 29 times. I would not have done that. I am a person who believes in smaller government, lower taxes and fees. The budget of the state of Colorado for 2014-15 increased 7.8% to $24.6 billion. That was an increase of 7.8% when the people who are sitting in this audience, many of them probably didn't see a 7.8% increase in their own personal income. In terms of, there's an issue that isn't an Eagle County issue, but it's a Routt County issue, and that's coal. We have a coal mine there that has 380 families who are dependent upon it, and a power station at Hayden that burns coal to generate electricity. I don't believe that the regulations that Senate Bill 252 and that the federal government are now placing on carbon dioxide are good. I think that they jeopardize those jobs. And I'm not talking about the families, folks. I mean about the companies. I'm talking about the people, the families who have homes, children in school who need those jobs. I will fight for those coal jobs because of the families and the need that they have for that income.
Diane?
The major difference between us is our experience and our level of transparency. I have experience both in private business and small business, bike businesses, bike building businesses, and also 10 years as a Routt County Planning Commissioner, 2 terms as a Routt County Commissioner. I know how the state government works. I've been very successful. I was named the most successful freshman legislator in 2013. When we think of state government, first of all, I cannot raise your taxes. Read my lips. I cannot raise your taxes. It is illegal in Colorado for an elected representative at any level to raise your taxes. So anyone who says I have raised taxes is not clear on the process, okay? So that's really important. Secondly, in terms of getting bills passed, bills that help Eagle County and Routt County and our state as a whole, I have worked with business very, very closely. And I have come up with bills, both my own bills and co-sponsored bills, that help our small businesses thrive. I have also focused on the neediest among us, that safety net that we must have to be both a compassionate society and a society that works, both literally and figuratively. You have to provide the opportunity for people to get job skills. You have to provide programs like Breakfast Before the Bell to help children who don't get breakfast at home, but who need to thrive at school just like all the other kids. But probably the most important difference is my history and my efforts on one of our most important resources, and that's our environment. I believe that our environment in Eagle County and Routt County, our clean air, our clean water, our wildlife habitat, are next to our people the second most important economic asset we have. If we disturb that asset, our businesses lose.
Chuck, you have 30 seconds rebuttal.
I want to disagree with my opponent on taxes. My opponent was a leader on Senate Bill 13213 and Amendment 66, which followed. And Amendment 66 was a near $1 billion tax increase for the citizens of this state when they weren't seeing that kind of an increase in their own personal income. My opponent had op-ed in the Steamboat newspaper about a week before that Amendment 66 came to the vote, and she strongly supported it in the most eloquent verbiage. And that went down in 70% in Routt and 60% in Eagle County. I'm sorry, that was a tax increase, and that was out of touch.
I believe I have the last question, and I'm going to likewise jump back to something that we had asked of the Senate candidates as well. It obviously translates, I believe, to the House activities, and I believe Senate Bill 13252, the Renewable Energy Bill. Diane, you did vote in favor of that?
Yes, I did.
And my question, I'm going to change it a little bit and ask if you believe that that bill can be put in place if that objective of 20% renewable energy can truly be put in place without a significant negative impact on jobs in this district.
Holy Cross, the co-op here, is already doing it. Yampa Valley Electric, the co-op in Routt County, is close. The co-ops that have tri-state contracts aren't, because tri-state limits those contracts to no more than 5% renewables. Both Holy Cross and YVA buy their power from Xcel, not from Tri-State. So they've been able to implement all kinds of renewables. One of the best examples of renewable energy is in gypsum, and that's the biomass plant. It's created jobs, it's created tax dollars, and it's created that new energy industry here. We also have, of course, many opportunities for hydro, and my bill with Don, that's the cheapest, by the way, form of power. My bill with Don Corum removes some of the barriers to water rights holders getting through that process to use small hydro. Moreover, when I voted for the bill, as I do in all my bills, I did very careful research. Not only did I talk to all the stakeholders, but I looked at all the data. And you know what? And this really surprised me. The co-ops that had the largest percentage of their portfolio already in renewables in 2012 had the lowest prices for their customers. Let me repeat that. The co-ops that had the largest percentage of their portfolio in renewables had the lowest prices. That's because wind was cheap and hydro was cheap, and in areas where you can do biomass, it was cheap. One of the co-ops that wanted to do coal mine methane capture, which the Oxbow mine wanted to work on, couldn't do it because of their contract with Tri-State. So Holy Cross is working with the Oxbow mine, and that keeps those coal mining jobs there, and it also provides cleaner energy and the reuse of what was a waste material. I think it's really, really important to not see renewables as the enemy of traditional fossil fuels. Coal is going to be our base load for the foreseeable future, and our clean, high BTU, low sulfur, low mercury, Northwest Colorado coal will be part of that picture.
Chuck, your thoughts?
Yeah, Senate Bill 252 is going to increase the cost of electricity to Yampa Valley Electric Association. That's not Eagle County, that's Routt County. And the reason for that is that there's a piece of that bill that says that 1% of their power that they purchase has to be local renewable. And they're having a dickens of a time trying to figure out how to get within their service district enough renewable energy to meet that mandate from the legislature. That is going to increase the cost of electricity to Yampa Valley Electric customers throughout several counties. Tri-State Generation in Craig has spent $300 million getting their effluent up to speed as far as mercury, fly ash, sulfur, and other particulate matter. If this CO2 thing that the federal government is pushing, and in what has been declared as a war on coal, when that continues, when that is implemented, when the federal government pushes that need for regulation to the state government, it's going to significantly increase the cost of electricity to families and to small businesses and to small business entrepreneurs who might be thinking about moving here. Holy Cross had already done all of their required renewables, and their cost of electricity is higher than Yampa Valley's. I was at the Yampa Valley Electric Board meeting a few months ago, and they were talking, the theme of the meeting was, How are we going to meet this 1% local requirement and not increase your cost of electricity? And it's going to increase the cost of electricity.
There is no 1% local requirement because I put an amendment on the House floor to lower it to 3/4. And that was for smaller co-ops. That amendment then means that 3/4% has to come from what's called distributed generation. At Yampa Valley Electric, community solar gardens have already been built to deal with that. And a number of customers, of course, have small hydro projects, wind, and so forth. At Holy Cross, a large number of customers have already used distributed generation with wind, with solar, and it creates jobs.
Surprisingly, we are right on time, Chuck, with you giving the first of the 2-minute closing statements.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This has been a pleasure. I love coming to Eagle County. I get to spend a lot of time down here, and this is an excellent way for me to visit with you folks and to let you know how I feel about a number of subjects. I was trained as an engineer. I have a master's degree in engineering, and the one thing that we learned in engineering school, and probably more than anything else, a lot of the formulas and a lot of the derivations that we used, I never saw again. But what we did learn was common sense. Solving problems is a common sense operation, and as engineers, we learned how to do that. We succeeded or failed on our ability to solve problems in a common sense manner. I was asked to increase the throughput of a refinery that I managed one time, and I went out, and it started in 1919, and it had never run above a certain capacity for years and years. I went out and asked the chief operator of the unit that would increase the capacity. I said, Howard, I've looked at this as an engineer, and my boss has, and is there any way we can increase the throughput in this thing? Because everybody's jobs is dependent upon whether this is a successful operation. And Howard said, yeah, we can spend a few $100s and do that. A week later, we tested it. We raised the capacity of that refinery by 15%, and we solidified the jobs of those people because it was more economically viable. I got a pat on the back, Howard got a pat on the back, and it was working together and listening to people at the level in which the work is done that got the job done. I am Chuck McConnell. I am running for the Colorado House. I really want to represent you folks in Denver, and it will be a full-time job with me because I'm retired, and I'm going to be down here in your meetings and other locations 12 months out of the year. Thank you for being here. Thank everybody for putting this on.
Diane, obviously you have the last word here, and when you're done, Ron just has a couple of comments for the audience and the like. So.
Thank you all for being here. As I said in my opening, I am honored to represent Eagle County. It has been one of the greatest joys of my life to make some friends in Eagle County, to learn much more about Eagle County, and to see both the similarities to my home county and the differences. And I believe I've learned a lot, and I have a lot more to learn. I'm running on my record, and on promises kept. I promised you I'd work across the continental divide and the partisan divide for effective, common sense solutions to build a better future for Colorado. I've done that with integrity, with fiscal responsibility that is focused around 2 balanced budgets that have not only increased our rainy day fund, our reserve, but have also funded needed investments to help businesses, to help veterans, to help kids, to help the elderly. It is very unusual for any legislator to have all our bills pass, let alone in 2 back-to-back sessions, let alone with bipartisan support. That's my record. I've worked very hard across the aisle and with others. My record shows that I know how to build consensus because I've done it. My record shows that I know how to stand up for you as your strong mountain community voice because I've done it. I've brought people together, and I believe that by working together, by building bridges, not barriers, by using the possibilities of partnership, not partisanship, and by relying on empirical evidence, not ideology, We can build a brighter future for all of us and for all of our children. And I'm proud to be your strong mountain community voice down at the Capitol, and I'm eager to keep on working every day for you, and I would be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Let me, if I may, just make a few closing remarks, and I hope I speak for both Greg and myself. But first of all, it has been a joy and a pleasure to be part of Democracy in Action, and the Democracy in Action not only exercised by the candidates, but by the audience and whoever is viewing at home. I want to say a few thank yous. First of all, to Greg, who's been a pleasure to work with, to John for doing a good job in the timekeeping, to the party chairs for their contributions to putting on this debate and supporting us and participating. Most of all, to the candidates who have been very forthright, very forthcoming with their comments, and that's deeply appreciated. We also want to advise whoever is in person here or listening, we'll be doing this again, both Greg and I, on Tuesday at 6 p.m., same place, same time. And on that date, we will be having a debate with the county commissioner candidates, the sheriff candidates, the coroner candidates, and then there are 4 uncontested offices. Those officers or those office seekers will have a few moments to talk, but we're not going to do that in a debate format. So with that, thank you very much, and everybody have a safe drive home.
Thank you.